Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Dave Doeren, this NC State program wrap up their spring game yesterday afternoon and want to hop on and talk about some key storylines and takeaways that we had from this game. And for the NC State fans that have been rocking with the fellas for the last couple of weeks and months, you guys kind of know that this is one of my teams heading into 2024. I think they did a phenomenal job in the transfer portal. But more importantly, I think they really addressed what they needed to in terms of the personnel department heading into 2024. And you look back at that spring game, and I think that's exactly how you wanted it to go if you're an NC State fan, where you saw this offense have so many different ways it can attack opposing defenses heading into 2024. Want to get into some of the players that were most impressive. Before we do, and as always, just want to say thank you to you guys. And it has been a blast taking deep dives into all of these programs during the spring months. Cannot thank you guys enough for all the support y'all have shown. If you guys do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. More importantly, for the NC State fans, would love to hear some of your takeaways as well from what we saw Saturday afternoon. And without further ado, let's get into this one. I think we got to start with probably the biggest storyline for this NC State team, and that is the quarterback play, right? Brennan Armstrong last year was just a massive miss, right? It never really seemed to work with him at NC State. Many of the NC State fans know we talked about it when Grayson McCall transferred to NC State. I think this was one of the better transfer portal dishes that you saw in the country. At the end of the day, Grayson McCall has thrown for over 10,000 passing yards with a 70% completion percentage, 88 touchdowns to 14 interceptions. Don't care what level of college football that is extremely impressive. He's been a winner at the college football level, and you saw him fit right in to this NC State offense. And you get into Grayson McCall's performance. I thought you saw a quarterback that kind of what you saw at Coastal Carolina, just in extreme command of the offense. The ball was coming out quickly. It was coming out for the most part on time and accurately. And you look at a bunch of other spring games that we'll be watching during the spring, you normally see offenses not really be able to find a rhythm. Grayson McCall, I think, was clearly in rhythm and kind of showed that he had a strong grasp of this NC State offense. And if you're an NC State fan, from what you saw at the quarterback spot with Grayson McCall, I think you have a lot of confidence about what this offense is going to be like. And I will just do a quick comment. CJ Bailey, the early enrollee, true freshman. NC State fans have a good one with him. Loved him coming out of high school down in the state of Florida. He has a massive arm. He's a phenomenal athlete. That's exactly how you want your quarterback room to look, right? A raw, traitsy guy in CJ Bailey, being able to sit behind a veteran in Grayson McCall. You look at the quarterback play not only in 2024, but a couple of years down the road. That seems to be a strong suit for NC State. Now, I think the biggest storyline for this NC State team is not only I think you have a massive upgrade at the quarterback position. It is a massive upgrade in the offensive skill department. You look at last year, if it wasn't Kevin Concepcion, it really wasn't anybody hitting explosive plays for this NC State offense. You take a look at what they have heading into 2024. There are so many different ways that they can attack opposing offenses. Let's start with the running back room. A guy like Jordan Waters was phenomenal at Duke. I thought he had a phenomenal spring game. The NC State running back room last year just kind of lacked a guy that could make plays. Like if it was blocks for 5, they'd get 5, but they weren't really making anything special happen on the ground. Jordan Waters looked great. I think Hollywood Smothers coming over from Oklahoma, also a player that I think you're really excited about. This NC State running back room certainly looks much better, but then the wide receiver room is probably where you're most excited for, right? You bring in a guy in Grayson McCall who just proven at the college football level. You look at these wide receivers, obviously we know what we have in Kevin Concepcion, one of the best players in the ACC, period, as a true freshman last year. Let's talk about guys like Noah Rogers, coming in 6'2", 200-plus pounds, has a verified track time, didn't really play much at Ohio State, but was a top 50 national prospect coming out of high school. He's going to be a guy that can really stretch that field. And you look back at NC State last year, there wasn't a wide receiver that really put any fear into defenses attacking that deeper third. I think Noah Rogers could certainly be that wide receiver. And when you start injecting that kind of playmaker in that offense, it's only going to help a guy like Kevin Concepcion, who's going to have more space to operate in those underneath routes. You take a look at a guy like Justin Jolly, who is just kind of a matchup nightmare for NC State heading into 2024. He's a guy that you'll see him play a little tight end, kind of that jumbo slot wide receiver. He looked very good work in the middle of the field, working up the boundary. Thought Dakari Collins had a very good game as well. You start looking at all the talent that this wide receiver room has that's at the disposal of Grayson McCall in this NC State offense. You think that this NC State team is going to take massive strides on this side of the football. And we kind of said it all last year, like death taxes and Dave Doeren's defense being very, very good with Tony Gibson there. They're always going to have a solid defense. I think our big question for NC State heading into 2024 is, can we get a little bit more explosive on offense? 6.5 yards per pass last year. That was 96th in the country. From what you saw during that spring game yesterday afternoon, this offense is going to take a massive step in the right direction from an explosive play standpoint. I thought the offensive line, both the first and second team offensive line, thought they played really well, running the football well, keeping the quarterback clean, kind of the things that you come to expect for NC State on the offensive line. And if I'm an NC State fan, kind of how I wrap up this offensive performance is I saw some NC State fans saying, well, it doesn't look like our defense is going to be all that great. That's exactly how you wanted this spring game to go, right? One of the position groups is not going to look great. Today it was yesterday afternoon, it was the defense. But if you're an NC State fan, I mean, that's how you wanted it to look, because you kind of just trust that Dave Doeren, Tony Gibson, they're going to have a quality defense. But for this NC State team to compete for an ACC championship, heck, compete for a college football playoff spot, you needed to see this offense take a massive step. And I think you certainly saw that for NC State on Saturday afternoon. Now, quick note on the defense, didn't play with a ton of their veteran guys. You look at this NC State defense and you like some of the additions that they made in the transfer portal. You like some of the guys that they have coming back. You obviously have some guys like Peyton Wilson to kind of try to replace, but I think he did a decent job. Cam Riley coming from Auburn, I am very, very high on what he did at Auburn last year. You obviously have some guys returning, and Aiden White, who is one of the better cornerbacks in the country. Davin Van on the defensive line. Yes, it was not the most impressive performance from this NC State defense, but if there's one position group that, in my mind, you're not worrying about as much, it's definitely going to be this NC State defense. So if you're an NC State fan, from what you saw yesterday, and I think really just all the skill that you saw kind of come to fruition, I mean, it's massive. You go back to last year's spring game, and I get the weather wasn't good, but it just got off to a rocky start. Brendan Armstrong not really having an identity with this offense, not really that many playmakers besides true freshman Kevin Concepcion last year. You look at this team heading into 2024, so many different ways that this offense can attack opposing defenses. It looks like that run game with Jordan Waters and Hollywood Smothers is going to be very good. Grayson McCall, a quarterback that I trust a lot at that position. And then just so many different wide receivers that can attack opposing defenses, right? Kevin Concepcion, a guy that is probably one of, if not the best wide receiver purely after the catch in the country. You inject a guy like Noah Rogers, who I think really can stretch teams vertically. You have a matchup nightmare in Justin Jolly, who I think can work that middle of the field. And then you have some young guys, Terrell Anderson, Jonathan Paylor, who are just absolute weapons on the offensive side of the football. This NC State team, from an offensive skill perspective, is just in such a better spot than it was in 2023. And I think that's what excites you the most if you're an NC State fan. This is a team that's going to be extremely exciting heading into 2024. We're going to be talking a lot about it. Appreciate you guys rocking with the fellas. Wanted to hop on, talk a little bit about what we saw on Saturday. Appreciate y'all, and we'll talk to you guys later. Peace.